speaker, I think. I don't know which one is it. I think it's the speaker of my PC. It was still on. Yeah, so that's why um there was echo. But the speaker and PC of P- the speaker and microphone of my PC, it's not a good quality. So when I speak through that, most of the students complain that it's not good. That's why I have to log into uh, another gadget so that I can be heard better. Yeah, good morning, everyone. So, how was your weekend?
Okay.
Yeah, it was a very busy weekend for me. So, still feeling tired about the busy weekend. Anyhow, I don't know whether I've shared with you guys the formula sheet as what you can see. If not, I will include it in the together with the issue of the test tomorrow, right? There is a test tomorrow, and I think I'll issue it around 12:45. Yeah, so we'll talk about that further later
Uh,
on.
do we
Mhm.
answer in wait? Can we answer in foolscap paper?
Of course, you can. You can
Okay.
either choose foolscap paper or A4 paper. Yeah. But most importantly, make sure it is clear lah. I mean, when you scan it or when you uh, took a photo of it, make sure it's clear.
Can we use
Um,
pencil? Can we use pencil to answer?
are you going to camera it, or are you going to take a picture out of it, or are you going to scan it if you're using pencil?
Oh, take picture.
Oh, if you take picture, it's not as clear as when you scan it.
Oh, as long
Yeah,
as it's clear, it's okay.
yeah. I would not want to mark if it's blur. Yeah. Um, I think Noel, you did a different method the other day, right? I mean, your method was you took a picture or you scan and then you paste it on Microsoft Word, was it not? And then you save it as a PDF file after that. Is that how you do it, Noel?
Yeah.
Mm, that's an alternative life. You plan to take a picture. All three of you don't have a scanner, is it? Like a printer, normally it comes three in one now. It has a copier, printing, and scanning. You Oh, okay, okay. If it's yeah, if you have that, it's okay. A scanner using your handphone, that's all right already. But it's just that some apps can you can take only one picture at a time, and then when you save it, you can put translate back to your notebook or your PC, and then you use I love PDF, the online on the internet you can get it, and then merge all the files so that it will be submitting only one file lah. But that would take a bit of extra time from you. Yeah. So I'll check on the time again allocated for the exam. I do consider that for the test, I mean, I do consider it is a probability and statistics paper, and normally students need more time because you have to do extra more, statistics is not as direct as other subjects. You have to do extra calculation. Yeah. Um. Yeah. So any other question about the test, or should I continue with the lecture for today?
Continue.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. That's fine.
Um. Okay. If anything, you thought of something, do ask. And I was going through the lecture notes last night, and I realized um I realized that we stopped at this part. Let me close this one yet. But before I close the Form B, we are on week 9 now, and we're supposed to finish up estimation and confidence interval. We haven't finished it. I still have a bit of part to cover it today. So, what crossed my mind when I was going through it just now was that I realized perhaps the tutorial, the one that you asked me, Noel, that I haven't covered the topic yet, and I already asked you guys to do the tutorial. I was thinking about it because when I went through the lecture notes last night, I realized perhaps that was the reason during our tutorial last week. Some of the question, like question 9 and question 10, you were not able to do. Maybe perhaps I haven't covered the topic yet. I mean, I was going through that, but we'll see as we go on with the lecture today. Okay. Um, all right. So if I did ask you to do the tutorial without covering the topic yet, then sorry about that. But through the explanation during the tutorial, I hope you guys understand. And what else? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Today, my plan is to finish up the chapter. Yeah, that is chapter 5, right? And perhaps I would like to start on the hypothesis testing as well. But as you can see in the form B that we have here, we are to finish, not finish basically, it will go on to week 10 for the estimation and confidence interval. I check, I only have about roughly about 10 slides, and therefore I would definitely be able to cover a bit of hypothesis testing today. That is the next chapter, chapter 6. Yeah. But you can also see that hypothesis testing goes until week 12, which we have plenty of time actually. Yeah. But doesn't matter. We'll do based on our progress. I think the Form B, the course plan, was structured in such a way, considering there are more students in a class. Yeah, but since our class is a small group, therefore less question from students, so it doesn't take so much of our lecture session. Yeah, and you guys also do not have so much question about the lectures. Yeah, so anyhow, will do as based on your progress, not based on the cost plan anymore, as long as we are covering accordingly. Okay, so I hope you guys are clear about that. Yeah, so let me close this, and I'm not closing the formula just in case we might need to use it later. So let me start by the recording of the session today and stop the presentation first. Or rather, I better start the whole entire screen. Show this first. And I hope everybody's ready. I'm going to start the recording. Good morning. Today is the 15th of March 2021. It's week 9 for semester 202101. Yeah, and we are still on chapter 5 for the topic on the estimation and confidence interval. And we're going to continue and try to finish it today. Yeah. This is for the subject BAMS 1613, probability and statistics. Yeah. So I wonder why I'm on example 8, but basically this is what I want to show you here. Because the last time we covered was discussion on this, right? So I've explained to you guys about how do you find the confidence interval with regards to how many percent confidence interval we want to find. So just to recap back to what we have covered last week, it was to calculate the 95% confidence interval for the mean. Yeah. And of course, the percentage here of the confidence interval is depending on what the question has given. What is the level or the value of the alpha, or in terms of how many percent the error could incur. Yeah. So this is the formula for the confidence interval for the mu. And yeah, I hope everybody understood this area. What we're going to cover today is the estimation of parameters in terms of population proportion, which here you can see I'm using a pi. And basically, instead of using pi, we could also indicate it as PS. It's the same meaning, okay? So for the uh, confidence interval for true population proportion for pi is given by this formula, as you can see, plus minus here. Therefore, it's concerning with a range of values from the smallest, which is where you see it's a minus, to the maximum value, which you can see it is a plus. So again, it's the same thing as what we have done in terms of the population mean. It's just that now you can see the formula is different, such that you can see the standard error of it is not as what we have done before. Before it was s over square root n. Now it is square root of the pi, because ps is similar to the value of the pi, times with 1 minus pi over n. Yeah, and everything is square root. We still have to refer to the table, which is you need to identify what is the value of your z. Yeah, and of course your alpha you must always divide by 2, considering we are still doing confidence interval in such that the percentage, depending on how many percent, say 95% or 98%. Let me just draw a small part here. The 98% or the 95%, depending on what question is given to you, is based on this area started from the mean, and this would cover what is your alpha level. Yeah, so it's actually 1 minus alpha basically. So I should have written that 1 minus alpha. So it's still what I'm trying to point out is that when we're doing confidence interval, what we want to figure out is what is the value of the minimum and the maximum value. However, based on what we've learned last week, the only change that you see here is that we are dealing with population proportion. So you will realize now that because we are finding population proportion from the question, you need to identify what is the proportion. And you will realize also how or when do you need to use this kind of formula is when you check out the question, the word confidence interval is there on the question, but there's no information about the mean or the standard deviation, and immediately you should know you should solve using this method. Yeah, using population proportion. So in order to understand this, we're going to look at example 8. Yeah, and this is about we want to assess the manufacturer that is wants to assess the proportion of defective items in a large batch produced by a particular machine. So we have a sample of 300, as you can see from the question, and from that sample of 345 are defective. Yeah, and definitely or immediately you should see the 300 total sample, and from the 345 are defective. Therefore, this will give us the value of the proportion. Okay, now here in this question, you can see the word confidence interval. That means we need to calculate a 98% confidence interval for the proportion of defective items in a complete batch. Okay, so in this case, what we have is we let, in order to solve it, yeah, we let pi be equivalent to the population proportion of defective items. How do we know it's defective items? Is from the question. You can see here that basically it's the question, the random variable is about proportion of defective items. Okay. And then I hope you are looking at the question, yeah, while I show you how the solution is. Therefore, here we therefore can write the P is equal to x over n from the sample of 345 are defective, which gives us 0.15. Now from here, alpha is equal to 0.08 because of the 98% confidence interval, and therefore alpha divided by 2, you get 0.01. Yeah, after you divide the alpha by 2. And when you check from the short table, yeah, I hope you guys have the table with you. When you check the short table, z 0.01 is equivalent to 2.3263. Yeah, so just to show you guys, do you need me to show you that?
No need.
Okay, so you know how to identify 2.3263, right? So from here, what you need to do is just put all the values that you have identified here into the formula, which is the 98 confidence interval for the pi is therefore, yeah, just put all the values here, which is the p is 0.15 plus minus z alpha divided by 2 is 2.3263 times its square root, again 0.15 times 1 minus 0.15 and divide by 300. Now when you calculate this, yeah, this would give you as 0.15 plus minus. Calculate all this first, yeah, before you add with the 0.15, which is 0.0480, and that gives you the range from 0.1020 to 0.1980. So basically, this is the proportion of defective items. That means it's about, if you multiply 100, of course, it will be in percentage. That means roughly about 10 to, well, 20% the proportion of defective items, which is quite bad for a manufacturing company to have 10 to 20% defective from every batch you produce. About 10 to 20%, that is not a good performance. Yeah. So this is a way, in a way, a method, yeah, that you companies can use in order to check out uh, whether the company is performing a production line, is it performing accordingly? Yeah. All right. So any question, class,
No.
about, okay. So this is how you do it. And basically, when we do confidence interval, right, it's quite straightforward. The only thing you need to identify is whether the question is a population mean or a population proportion. And it's very quite possible for you to identify which method to use, because you're only doing two types: population mean or population proportion. And you know it's population mean because you are given the mean and standard deviation value. If in that question it doesn't give you that information, you'll be able to identify from the question that it is a population proportion. And you only have to choose between them two. Yeah, only two methods available in our syllabus. Okay, so with that, we have another example, example 9. This is about 100 voters, that is your N, and apparently it indicated that 55% of them support Mr. ABC. And what we want to find is a 95% confidence interval for the proportion of all the voters who support Mr. ABC. So in order to do this, identify what is your population proportion. It is about supporting or not Mr. ABC. And because in this case, the information provided is supporting Mr. ABC, right? So therefore, that would give us the P 55 out of 100, which is the 0.55 or 55%. So what you do is next to check what is the value of the alpha, because this is a 95% confidence interval. Therefore, alpha is equal to 0.05. You divide by 2, you get 0.025, and hence from the table, you get 1.96. And just put it into the formula. The 95% confidence interval for the pi is therefore put all the values in, and when you calculate it, you should get between um, 0.4525 to 0.6475. It is recommended to write your answer up to 4 decimal places. Um, that is the standard one. I mean, if you put your answer up to 4 decimal places, it's already just nice. Yeah. Some students prefer to put it up to 6 decimal places. 6 decimal places. You can do that also, but if you have written up to 4 decimal places, it is acceptable. Okay. Any question?
Miss,
Yeah.
do, do we need to use the pi symbol for the let let pi on top?
This one.
Yeah.
Not necessary. I mean, this is just to show that we're doing population proportion. We don't use. What do you mean by do we need to show? You mean this writing? You mean
And the symbol, especially.
like here?
Hmm.
Yeah, some books, yeah, reference material, instead of using pi, they simply use the p also. Yeah. So if you write the pi or the p, it should be the same meaning. It doesn't really. In fact, here might as well I change it to that, yeah, to p. But I'm used to using the pi, so it's still the same. It's okay.
Oh,
Yeah. All right. So any other question from Calvin or from Farah?
No. Oh, is
Okay.
this is this popular on this is for only population this formula?
Yeah, this is only for population proportion. So that's why when you get the question right, you need to check, yeah, whether it's a population mean or population proportion. If it's a population mean, it's like from the question, there you can identify you are given the mean and the standard deviation. Then you have to use the other formula that we did last week, yeah. Um, and of course, from the question, they would provide you the value of the mean and standard deviation. And for population proportion, you know it's a question on proportion because the value of the mean and standard deviation is not given to you. What is given to you is you can identify that it's about proportion, like a probability kind of thing.
The population only used for the confidence interval, or the other question also got used the population?
You mean the population proportion only, is it only used for confidence interval?
Uh,
Yeah, for now, yes. At the moment, we're using it for confidence interval, but when we do the hypothesis testing, you'll see it's used again with a different formula, with a different method of solution. Yeah, so that's why the hypothesis testing is the next area we're going to cover after completion of chapter 5. You will come into this idea of population proportion again in the next chapter. Yes. All right. No other
okay.
question?
No.
Okay. Okay, good. Right. So we move on to the next idea. Now this is what I meant, yeah, when I spoke earlier this morning, Noel, especially about the finding the value of the n. I remember you asked me last week whether, in a way, you were saying like, did we cover this or not? So when I was reviewing the notes last night, I was like saying, hey, maybe perhaps this is the reason. But then again, I did explain the tutorial during our tutorial session last week, so I hope you guys understood how it was solved for question 9 and question 10. But this is the area of such that we're doing the other way around, in such that we want to identify what is the sample size. Because all the examples that we have done, the n, the value of the sample, is provided to us, it's given to us. Yeah. But this time, what we do is, how do you determine the sample size based on the given information? Yeah. So, this is where, like I said, you want to identify what is the value of the sample. And for this, we have to meet according to the degree of accuracy that was set in the question. So the degree of accuracy is based on the R, yeah, the standard error, um, depending whether it's a positive or a negative value. Yeah. So we have the first one, sample size for estimating a population mean. So you notice this is a population mean, and therefore the formula is in such. Yeah, remember that the maximum error for the population mean is sigma divided by square root n. So at 100% or 1 minus alpha, depending on the alpha. So if our alpha is 5%, therefore it will be a 95% level of confidence for the mean, sample mean, plus minus z alpha divided by 2 multiply with the standard error is equal to x bar plus minus r. So if you remember the example 9 and 10 that we did last week, perhaps this part I haven't explained to you guys. Yeah, so that was why you guys were having perhaps difficulty to solve it. Well, anyhow, this is what it's meant. That means everything here, z alpha divided by 2 times with the standard error, all this is the r. That's why I've written here it's equal to the r. And because of that, since we know, let's say the question already provides us what is the degree of accuracy it wants, therefore, we can do a bit of algebra, as you can see here. We can make n as the subject, and therefore n is equal to z alpha divided by 2 times the value of your s. Now the s here is referring to the standard deviation, okay? So don't mind me, it's my typing error, I think. Or is it the same as in your notes? But it's the same meaning. The standard deviation of sigma, either using the symbol of sigma or using as, it's the same meaning. It's the same meaning as the value of the standard deviation, of which you divide by r, the degree of accuracy, and all of it, you squared it. And this is the formula that you can immediately use to find the value of the n. Because if I show you how we get from here to there, do I need to show you how we get from this to there, class?
No,
If me, no.
Yeah, how about Kelvin? No, did you say just now?
no.
And Farah, where is Farah? Oh, oh,
Why is the standard deviation on the left above and then the right is below? Is that the difference?
yeah. Don't it's
Oh,
can you check your notes whether it's same thing? But it's, I mean, is it the same as what I've typed here? Because by right it should be the same, right? Because here using sigma, but they are the same. They are both still referring to the value of the standard deviation. So don't worry so much about it. Is it my typing? In your notes, is it written as sigma also? Perhaps it could be my typing class. I mean, like I type it incorrectly. They are the same meaning. They are both standard deviation actually. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Okay. So moving on, just now was number one. This is number one, okay? So moving on to the number two, this is with regards to population proportion. You can see population proportion pi. So same thing, how many percent level of confidence, the p plus minus z alpha divided by 2 times with the standard error. So therefore ps plus minus r. So remember that the R is the degree of accuracy, or in such that R is the maximum allowable error. So in population proportion, we pronounce the R as maximum allowable error, whereas in here, the R here is referring to the degree of accuracy. But then again, of course, in the exam or in your tests, well, you don't have a test on this topic. In your assignment, you don't have to remember what is R in terms of population mean, or what is the name of the R in population proportion. We just make sure you know it's about error. Okay, so therefore, the standard error together with the Z alpha divided by 2 is equal to the R. Yeah. And when you do the algebra of it, make N as the subject. Therefore, this is the formula. Yeah. So we are able to determine the minimum sample size by using this formula. And well, by using it, you know what is the best sample size in terms of allowing the most maximum error. Yeah. So remember just now about the S and the sigma. S is replaced by the sigma if sigma is unknown. So it's just a matter of using whether it's a sample or is it a population. Yeah. But like I mentioned in the previous lesson, we use sigma if your n is less than 30, and you use s when your n is bigger than 30. So most of the cases, the question will tend to have n a bigger value. So it would be s lah. We use the letter s in terms of notation, but the value is still the same. So it's just a matter of using the correct notation, that is. Yeah. So if, say, no information about the sample proportion not given at all, then we can simply use this formula to calculate what is the minimum sample size. So that means you just, get the value of Z alpha divided by 2 and divide by 2 times with the value of the R and square it. So you have 3 formulas to remember here, class. This is the first one. Let me clean this up because it's a bit messy. This is the first formula in order to find the n. Yeah, this is the first one, followed by the second one here. This is for the population proportion for finding the minimum sample size. And if, say, we do not have enough information, then this is the formula, shorter and brief. Yeah. So is it okay,
Okay.
class? Okay, so with that, we're going to look at an example. Yeah, and this example is that we want to check out a 90% confidence interval for the purchase price of TVs in various retail store, given in an area where the sample mean was not stated. Look at it, no sample mean stated, and differ by no more than 25 dollars. So this is basically your R. I mean, giving us an information about our R. Assume that the standard deviation, the sigma, is known and equal to 35 ringgit. That is our standard deviation. The question is, how large would n be to satisfy this requirement? So you see, this question already directed to us that we want to find what is the sample size. So to solve this, what is given to us is that the alpha is 10%, because based on, as you can see in the question, it's a 90% confidence interval. So we have to find, well, our alpha is 10%, and therefore our R is 25, and our standard deviation is 35. Now, I just want to point out again, the R is referring to this. The sample mean will differ by no more than $25. Yeah, so that is how we identify the value of the R. And then since it is a 90%, we have 10% as the alpha. So you divide by 2, you get 0.05, right? Check out from the table, it's equivalent to 1.6449. So just put it into the formula to find n. So when you put it into the formula, it means 1.6449 times 35, which is your standard deviation, divide by the R, which is 25, and everything you squared. And that would give you 5.303 equivalent. Therefore, this I round up to 6. Yeah. Um, a lot of students ask me that. Yeah. Why 6? Yeah. Because you see, the value of the n, we got 5.303, which is, to what we know about rounding, we normally would round it to 5, isn't it? Because the 3 here is less than 5. So when we do rounding, because the value 3 is smaller, yeah, than 5, therefore we don't add to the 5. But in this case, we're talking about the minimum sample size, and the value is 5.3. It is not right to take a value that is lesser than 5.3. Yeah, so the best is to take 6. And remember, it's a sample size. A sample size should not be in decimal. It is a round figure. Yes, a whole number, that is. So therefore, the minimum sample size is a 6. Yeah, the only reason you can take 5 is when the value is exactly 5, or maybe 4.9, then you take the value as 5. But because we have 5.303, then we take 6 lah, for the minimum sample size. Is that okay?
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So this is another example. Yeah, this is showing the proportion of defective components, and we have stated here he would be satisfied if he obtained an estimate within 0.5% of the true proportion. 0.5%. So you can imagine how small that is. Yeah, you can see here. That means that's our R. Yeah, 0.5 is 0.005. And we have 99% confidence. So 99% means 0.01, of which when you divide by 2, therefore 0.005. Another information given to us is that for initial large sample, it indicated that the PS, or the pi basically, is 0.02. So the question is asking, what is the size of the sample he should examine? So this is the formula that was shown to you earlier. So we have all the information except for the Z 0.005. And when you check from the table, you should see that it's valued at 2.5758. So what you do next, you just put all the values into the table, into the formula, and calculating this, what do you get? Can you help me to calculate? Just to make sure that my answer is correct. And I do get the same as what you have calculated. So can you calculate this? And we discuss the answer. I mean, compare the answer, not discuss. Can you help me to calculate that?
Is it 5,202? Yeah,
Mm, is it Noel? What did you get, Noel?
same as Noah.
Oh, who was the answer? Just who answered just now? Was it Noel?
My answer is Noel, and Noel answer the same in the chat.
Okay, you guys already discussed, is it?
Oh
Okay,
no,
yeah, you got 5,202. So that would be your minimum sample size that should be taken. Yeah, all right. Any question?
No.
Okay, so we move on to next example. Now, this example, we want to estimate what proportion drivers exceed the maximum speed limit on a certain road. How large a sample? So you see, as long as the question asks about the sample, how big the sample, what is the sample size, you know that you need to find the n. And how large the sample will we need so that the error of our estimate is at most 0.04 if the desired level of confidence is 99%. So here, 99%, that gives us an alpha of 0.01. Check out from the table, alpha divided by 2, that would be what? Yeah, 0.005. And when you check from the table, it is 2.5758. And of course, this, in order to find the n, we use this formula. Mm, you might say there's something different with the formula. Do you notice that?
Yeah,
not yet.
why?
Huh? You notice that or not? It's different. Let me go back to the formula for the proportion. This is the proportion. Yeah, proportion, right? So you can see this formula is slightly different because it's already calculated, I believe. Wait, alpha divided by 2. It's using this one because we are not given. There's one part I forgot already. This one. No information about sample proportion. We use this formula. Class. Low.
Oh,
Yeah, we are not given any information about the sample proportion. I mean, we are not able to, like this one also don't have because this is concerning with the mean, right? But this proportion, they give us the PS, which is 0.02. Yeah. But when you look at this formula, the next one, we are using this formula because there's no value of proportion given to us. Estimated at most 0.04. Okay, it's given. That's the error. This is your R. Yeah. So therefore, that's why we use this formula. And therefore, when you calculate it, we get 1036.68, which is the minimum sample size that should be taken. Is that clear? Do you understand?
Yeah.
oh yeah.
Hmm. Okay. Is Farah here? Oh, okay, Farah. I see you respond. I was wondering, I haven't heard from you for quite a while. So this is another area, finite population adjustment. So I'm going to let you guys digest a bit more about what we have covered so far. Can we have a 5-10 minutes break now? Can?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll have a 10 minutes break. We'll come back at 9:55. just to cover this, finish this, and we'll start with the hypothesis testing. Okay, see you guys in a bit.
because the Ballas are his new allies. Moving on to number 2, we have Crash repeatedly at Big Smoke's house. Now, in the few missions that CJ does for Big Smoke, we can see Crash exiting his house in the opening cutscene. And by Crash, I mean the corrupt police force led by Frank Tenpenny and second in command, Eddie Pulaski. So the first time that CJ sees them is in Running Dog. And then in the second time that CJ actually sees them is he'll see them in Wrong Side of the Tracks. Let's watch those two cutscenes really quick right now.
Boo!
Asshole.
Yo, Carl, see you around.
Fuck they doing over here anyway? Punk ass police.
Those nosy motherfuckers won't leave me alone. Think I'm Mr. Big or something. But I don't tell them shit. For me, it's all about my homeboy Carl.
Yeah, whatever you say.
The gang is real important, CJ, you know that. You down to represent, baby?
Yeah.
Look, my cousin is coming in town from Mexico. I got to go scoop her up.
All right, then. Come on.
Hey, Carl. Keeping busy, I hope.
You know me, Officer Tenpenny.
Yeah, I know you, Carl. I know everything about you.
Don't touch me, your pig hands.
That's right, Carl. I got my eye on you.
And like I give a fuck.
We're watching you, Carl.
Motherfucker!
What was that all about, baby?
You tell me.
Oh, hell, man. They got their nose in everything. Can't shit without Tenpenny taking an interest. The hell with him.
Yeah, I guess. What's really up?
Hey, thinking of taking a little ride. 3 Deep mentioned a little something that might put us deeper in the game.
Alright, I'm down.
So CJ witnesses Tenpenny and Pulaski being at Big Smoke's house several times, and CJ doesn't think much of this because he's being blackmailed by Tenpenny himself, because Tenpenny killed Officer Pendlebury, and is using that to threaten CJ to get him basically to do whatever he wants. However, though, what is noticeable here is that what Big Smoke says exactly about them being at his house. Now, Big Smoke says they got their nose in everybody's business, but then what I notice is that Big Smoke says, I don't tell them anything. And here's the thing. Usually people that are innocent of something, they haven't done something, if they just randomly blurt out, I didn't do it, when they weren't even accused of something, that's usually a red flag. Not always, but it's usually a red flag. When somebody blurts out, I didn't do it, when they're not even being questioned on it. Listen to what Big Smoke says here.
Motherfuckers won't leave me alone. Think I'm Mr. Big or something. But I don't tell them shit. For me, it's all about my homeboy Carl.
Yeah, whatever you say.
The gang is real important, CJ, you know that. You down to represent, baby?
Yeah,
What was that all about, baby?
you tell me.
Oh, hell, man. They got their nose in everything. Can't shit without Tenpenny taking an interest. The hell with him.
Yeah, I guess. What's really up?
Hey, thinking of taking a little ride. 3 Deep mentioned a little something that might put us deeper in the game.
Alright, I'm down.
Notice how Big Smoke just constantly changes the conversation, saying, oh, we gotta go take care of this business. He immediately stops talking about it, doesn't want to talk about it, immediately changes subject. But then at the end of Wrong Side of the Tracks, there's this dialogue in which Carl drops Big Smoke off at his house, and Big Smoke says, Carl, you better head home. I don't want Crash to pull you into something. And Carl says, okay, I'll leave, thinking that Big Smoke's being friendly to him. But in reality, the reason that Big Smoke is saying this is because he doesn't want CJ to catch him and Tenpenny conspiring in the act.
Hey, you better clear out, CJ. I don't want those Crash fools trying to pull you into some shit.
Alright, homie, you be careful with those cats. I'ma see you later.
Before I reveal the number subject, but then at the end of Wrong Side of the Tracks, there's this dialogue in which Carl drops Big Smoke off at his house, and Big Smoke says, Carl, you better head home. I don't want Crash to pull you into something. And Carl says, okay, I'll leave, thinking that Big Smoke's being friendly to him. But in reality, the reason that Big Smoke is saying this is because he doesn't want CJ to catch him and Tenpenny conspiring in the act.
Hey, you better clear out, CJ. I don't want those Crash fools trying to pull you into some shit.
Alright, homie, you be careful with those cats. I'ma see you later.
Before I reveal the number one early hint that I think Big Smoke was going to betray CJ, I want to make a few special mentions. And special mention number one is being way too friendly. Now, there's nothing wrong with being friendly, but Big Smoke is just way too friendly to CJ. He almost never argues with CJ or insults CJ in any way. CJ left Los Santos 5 years ago, just abruptly left without telling his friends or family, pretty much abandoned them. Everybody was pissed off at him early on in the game, except Big Smoke. Big Smoke was totally fine with that. And in my personal experience, working in retail for so many years, I know we can't really compare, retail to a video game storyline, but the point that I'm making is that when I interacted with customers, and those customers were just way too friendly, they were more friendly than normal, just way too friendly, they were almost always trying to pull some kind of scam. They were trying to trick you into something. So when somebody like Big Smoke is just way too nice, just keep that in mind. That's also a red flag there. Another special mention that I have here is his name. Think about it. What is his name? Big Smoke. Has that implied he's a traitor? Not his full name, but his initials. And I can't believe I didn't realize this until so many years later, but when you look at Big Smoke's name on the map for his missions, what are the initials? BS. I think everybody knows what BS stands for. Additionally, we have special mention number 3, which is that none of his missions are Grove Street related. If you think about it, all of his missions have nothing to do with Grove Street. Some people might say, well, OG Loke does. OG Loke is more of a Sweet mission, because Sweet is at Big Smoke's house, so you go to pick up OG Loke from jail, and OG Loke ends up betraying CJ anyways. Think about it this way. Running Dog, what is that mission? CJ drives Big Smoke to another part of town in which Big Smoke tries to buy weed from the Vagos. Another mission in Wrong Side of the Track, CJ drives Big Smoke to the train station in which he has CJ chase down and kill a bunch of Vagos gang members that were meeting with the San Fierro Rifa, a gang from San Fierro. How does Big Smoke know about that? And then his last mission, just business. In his last mission, Big Smoke is doing some major deal with the Russian mafia, and it just goes all crazy. And even CJ says, Big Smoke, there's something that you're not telling me. So none of his missions have anything to do with Grove Street. They don't benefit Grove Street in any way possible.
Oh, Smoke, these cats is organized. It's something you ain't telling me, man.
Look, Carl, all I know is they real pissed with us right now. Hold on, though, I got an idea.
We also have Ryder not coming back. Now this one focuses more on Ryder, but I decided to still throw it in there because it hints at his betrayal. Now in the mission House Party, what happens is a Grove Street member goes up to the gang and tells them that the Ballas are going to attack Grove Street. They're sending a lot of people over here. Ryder at the beginning of the mission runs off and says, I'll go get some backup, to which Ryder never returns. It's because Ryder was actually possibly hoping that Grove Street would be wiped out in this case, but they didn't. Another special mention is Big Smoke makes statements in the story that just make no sense. Take a listen to these.
What was with you back there, Smoke?
Man, if you can eat your food while everybody else is losing theirs and blaming you, you straight, homie.
What?
Nothing. Just some poetry I read.
What's going on, man? Shit seemed pretty fucked up.
People have to open their eyes and their hearts, CJ.
What are you talking about?
I'm talking about the choices all men face, brother. Sometimes they seem real, but other times there's no choice at all.
At least you still talking shit. You ain't changed a bit.
Who, me? No, never.
And the final special mention before we unveil the number one hint that Big Smoke was going to betray Grove Street is Big Smoke and Ryder almost abandoning CJ and Sweet at the motel. Now, in reuniting the families, Sweet meets up with the other Grove Street families in hopes of linking them up and putting their differences aside. What happens is the police raid the motel, and Big Smoke and Ryder immediately drive off. They just leave CJ there. Now, CJ fights his way through the motel and gets to Sweet. When he gets to Sweet, he tells them that Big Smoke basically bailed on them. Now, the reason that I think Big Smoke actually came back, a lot of people are wondering, why would Big Smoke come back? The reason I think he came back is because Big Smoke knows how capable CJ is. He's seen how many gangsters CJ has killed. So he was probably thinking CJ could possibly get Sweet out of this. And CJ probably would have gotten Sweet out of that situation, even if Big Smoke hadn't arrived. So he was probably scared that if CJ and Sweet got out, Sweet would have gotten rid of Smoke the second that he got back, especially after the drive-thru incident of not shooting. In this case, he came back to try to make himself look like he was loyal when he really wasn't. And the number one hint that Big Smoke was going to betray CJ and Grove Street is trying to push crack. Take a look at this cutscene in the introduction.
Hey, fool, we losing the streets, man.
Nah, we just standing by our principles, homie.
But our principles are making us bitches, man. Everyday ballers get stronger, and you and I get weaker. You and I get poorer, man.
Man, that shit'll blow over.
Oh,
It
whatever,
always
man.
does.
The fucking playground craze, man. This is the biggest money-making opportunity that guys like us will ever see.
I got all the shit I need. Man, I thought we was in this for the hood. Not destroying the family, man. It's Grove
Hello.
Street, nigga.
That's
Welcome
right.
back. Sorry, I'm a bit late. I got a telephone call just now. So, are you all here? Is everyone here?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, let's continue. Now, this is another area which is called the finite population adjustment. And all the while, we assume that our sample comes from an infinite population, meaning there is a fixed number. Our n is finite. Infinite. Yeah, that means there's, yeah. So if the population is finite, then adjustment has to be made. Yeah. So the formula given to us here is that the correct value of the standard error of the mean is this formula, where n is the population size. And for the proportion, the standard error for the proportion is given by this formula. Yeah, so there are two formulas that you have to take note. You don't have to memorize it because, as you know, this semester it's still open book because of the pandemic. Yeah, so the value here, which you see the square root n, capital letter N minus small n, divide by capital letter N minus 1, is called the finite population adjustment factor. So you can see it's both in the standard error for the mean here and also in the standard error for the proportion. Okay. So for this, let's look at this example 14. How do we solve it using this formula? So you see, we have a random sample of 100 items, which are taken from a large batch of articles of 2,696 items. And from it, it has 5 defective items. And we want to check out or to set up 95% confidence interval for the proportion of defective items. So in this case, yeah, we have 5 defective, that's your x. Our alpha is 0.05 obtained from the 95%. And therefore, when you divide the alpha by 2, you get 0.025, which you can check from the table. And here given also, the PS is x over n. So here our n is 100, which our capital N comes from the batch of articles 2,696. That's our capital N. So you see the difference between what is the N, capital letter, and the N, the sample. So in a way, this is the population basically. Yeah. And from the table, we get 0.025 equivalent to 1.96, and our PS is 5 out of 100, because from the 100, 5 are considered as the number of defective items from a sample of 100. So in order to solve this, we put it into this formula, the 95% confidence interval for the proportion of defective items. So putting this into this formula, you have to put all the necessary values in, as what you see here. Yeah, the PS, the proportion, the Z alpha divided by 2, 1.96, and put all the values accordingly. And when you calculate it, you should get a range of values between 0.0081 and 0.0919. So this is your answer. Any question, class?
How to get the PS again?
The PS. Oh, it's from here. Okay. From the X,
Oh,
whereby our small n is 100. Yeah. It's the X is stated here that it's considered to have 5 defective items. So 5 out of 100 lah. Yeah.
okay.
Okay. So, and that is how we get this answer. Did you double check the answer? Is it correct? Did I type it incorrectly? Because I do remember my notes, yeah. When I had the class, I already discussed with the students with the correct answer, and I amended it here. But then when I wanted to save it, it was not possible because the file was open as a read-only file. And then when I closed the file, then I forgot to update it again, and therefore it was not updated. So just on your own side as well, I hope you are calculating this and checking out the answer, whether it's correct or not. But I mean, all the values here are already correct. It's just that the final answer, I might have typed it incorrectly. Yeah. So I hope you're checking. Give me 1 minute. I'm feeling a bit hot. The room. I'm going to turn on my aircon first. Wait for a while. Yeah. Okay, so is there any problem to the calculation? Is it okay? I hope so. I hope it's okay. Yeah. All right. So if no problem, we go on to the next part. Yeah. This is a sample survey in a town 2012. It shows that 200 families spent on average 85.44 per week on food with a standard deviation. Immediately, you know this is concerning with the population mean. Yeah, because you have the average, the mean, and the standard deviation. So we want to calculate 99% confidence interval for the actual average weekly food expenditure of the 1,000 families in this town. So there is a finite number of families stated here, and our sample is only based on 200. So that would be your n, and I mean small n, and that would be your capital N. So you can see that this is the formula we're using. Information as given in the question. The alpha is 1% because 99% confidence interval. So this, of course, you have to divide by 2, and that gives us, or in reference to 2.5758. So once you have listed out all the information accordingly, just put it into the formula and calculate them. And you should get between 83.9535 to 86.9265. So this means that the 99% confidence interval for the actual average weekly food expenditure of 1,000 families is roughly about 80, yeah, the ones listed lah, 83 ringgit 95 cents to 86 ringgit 90, about 93 cents, I would say. Yeah, so this is the range. Any questions, guys?
Oh, so this one have the mean inside the formula.
Yes, in the question we have the mean and the standard deviation.
Oh,
Well, we don't use the values. We do. You see the mean and the standard. We do use it, and definitely we use this formula because we are given that information. So that's why we know it's the population mean for the actual number of well, it's a finite number of population. That is okay. Is that what you
oh,
asked, Noel?
oh yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because you see, there's two sample. There's 200 and there's 1,000. So that means that the 1,000 is our capital N, and the 200 is our smaller n, basically. Any question, anybody? No. All right, we move on to the next area. Hey, habis sudah pula. End of chapter 5 class. So that's it. I hope all of you understood what the topic is about. It's mainly confidence interval. For your information, the diploma students also studied this. However, they did not consider the last few parts that you guys have covered. Just to share with you guys, like here, this kind of question, I haven't seen it coming out in the final exam, but it is still in our syllabus, so do take note how to do it. There are keywords like this question: how do you know it's concerning with population, whereby you have two values of n, therefore you need to use this formula, yeah, because this is concerning with the actual average weekly food. It's based on the calculation is more or less based on the 200 samples only taken from 1,000 population, basically. So that's it. So we have ended chapter 5. Yeah, so let me just close this. and we shall continue with the next part. And the next part is about the hypothesis testing, which is this. So, any question, anybody, before we, start on this chapter? Any question?
Hmm. So far, no.
So far, no. So, just to share with all of you, we still have about 2 weeks. Yeah, 2 weeks to cover this chapter, and we have about 36 slides. So just nice for us to cover for another 2 weeks. But since we are quite, our progress is good, I just would like to start explaining to you about the hypothesis testing. What is it about? I'm not sure whether you guys have learned this before. Did you learn hypothesis testing before? Anybody?
I think no. I missed the last remaining weeks used for revision.
Yeah, because we are quite fast, so I would do, doing past year exam question, like look through any areas that you would like to discuss further. But generally, for maths, it would be best to do past year question, examples concerning with the topics, just to make sure that all of you know what is expected to be answered during exam. I would go for that. Yeah. After this chapter 6, we still have one more chapter to go through, yes or not? Which is the correlation and regression analysis. And after that, we have completed the syllabus. Yeah. So we have plenty of time actually. Yes, who was that? Was it you, Noel?
Yeah, because I worried not enough time for revision.
Oh, we definitely do have time for revision because now the hypothesis testing for this chapter, we only basically need about 2 weeks. So now is week 9, right? So we're covering part of it today. I believe next week, week 10, we should finish chapter 6. Yeah. And then the last chapter, which is correlation and regression analysis, I may need another 2 weeks. So you see, by week 12, we have finished the syllabus. So we have week 13 and week 14 just to go through past year to do revision for the final exam. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
All right. What else? Yeah. I think that's basically it. And some more. You do remember you have after your test. When did I tell you when is your assignment supposed to be?
Is it week 10 if
Week
mistaken?
11, isn't it? Oh, wait,
Week
yeah.
what?
I think week 11. Yes.
11 is it? Let me just yeah, correct. There is an assignment for you to do that is on week 11. So just nice lah, because week 11 I will be issuing the assignment. You should have finished roughly, not yet finished chapter 7, but I have to check back the assignment question. Hang on, I did write it here. Aha. Yeah, your assignment is inclusive of chapter 7. Yeah. I mean, your assignment inclusive of chapter chapter 2, chapter 2, 3, 4. Hey, hang on. My mistake, class. Your assignment is covering chapter 2, 4, 2, 3, 4, and 5 only, not inclusive of this chapter, your assignment. So maybe during our revision we focus more on doing passing on hypothesis testing and the correlation and regression analysis lah, just to prepare for the finals. Of course we'll do other questions as well, but right, when we do past year we have limited time, because if only you do the question earlier, then we can do the discussion faster. Yeah, so we try our best lah to cover as much as possible. But our progress is very good. Yeah. I think we can finish by week 12. Yeah. What else? Then you have plenty of time to do revision. I think the reason why we can finish the syllabus or the coverage is smooth and fast is because there's only three of you. It would be a different scenario when there are a lot of students, because you see every student has their own different understanding of the topic, and therefore there would be more students asking question, and that delayed the session a bit. Yeah, like when student ask question, I would entertain their question, and that would the progress is a bit not delayed, I would say. It's good because the coverage, the course plan has been designed to encounter that. But because our group is small, so that's why we are faster. Like the other subjects, yeah, class, the other subjects that I cover with them, um there are more students, so there are more questions being asked. So it's a bit delayed, and I'm rushing to complete it. And some more, the other subjects, they have an additional topic that you guys don't do. Like they have to, the business students, that is, they have to do what we call as the time series. Like you guys, you don't have to do time series. Yeah. So that's the difference. I mean, like your group, you are the computing students. The other group, degree student also, they are from the business school. But the business school students, they have additional topic which is called time series. And financial mathematics, they do that. You guys have lesser topic basically. Yeah, lesser topic. So that's why I think that was what confused me, Noel, about the error, the standard error, the R. I thought I already covered, but apparently I did it with the other group, because the other group I've already finished hypothesis testing with them. I'm doing 4 time series with them next this week, basically. Oh, yeah. So let's start this one then. I mean, is there any other question you guys want to ask?
No.
No, I think I talked too much already. So let me continue with hypothesis testing, chapter 6. Yeah, what is it about? Now, why do we study hypothesis testing? Oh, yeah, I was asking just now. Anybody learned this before? I mean, like, I think Noel already answered me. You haven't got Noel?
Yeah, no.
Okay, how about you, Calvin? Have you learned this before in other colleges,
No.
university? No, and okay, so this is new for everyone. So I need to know that, because once I know that, then I'll be more, careful in my explanation. Yeah. Um, what is it? What is hypothesis testing about? Hypothesis testing is we call it, most researchers, statistician, people who plan to further their studies, people who do or is doing their further studies, they have to use hypothesis testing. Well, again, depending on what kind of research they're doing. So normally, students are doing their masters or PhD. They definitely have to include hypothesis testing to support their research. Some degree courses would require students to have this, especially when they're writing big projects, yeah, and to have hypothesis testing into your research, into your project, would give a more secure validity to your research. Yeah, because I think you've heard that when you're doing your master's or your PhD, like some of your friends might have informed you, okay, I have to go through Viva very soon. So it's a way that the final interview, not the, yeah, final interview process, to question you on your research. So this is the same thing, yeah, class. Like what you see here, why do we need to do hypothesis testing? Is because we want to check whether the claim value of the population parameter, in this example is the population mean, can it be accepted or being plausible based on the sample evidence? So you see, let's say you're a researcher and you want to check, is it age a contributing factor to high blood pressure? So when you make a claim like that, when you make a statement like that, you want to check, is it valid or not? So how do you check that your claim statement, is it valid or not? Is by doing a test, yeah? And before you do a test, we were not doing like experiment. How could you go and check from, I mean, just do a simple lab experiment? No, you have to collect the data from re- well, based on the sample that you have chosen, and then from there you're not doing the actual testing of the lab things, but you're doing statistical testing based on the data that you've collected, whether it is the claim you make, is it accepted or not? Yeah. So of course, what we're doing here when we do the hypothesis testing here, we are learning more on the method of it. What are the steps or the information needed in order to make a good hypothesis testing? Yeah. So before we do that, you need to understand, what does it mean by hypothesis? What does it mean by hypothesis test or significant test? So the first one is hypothesis. What is it? It's basically a statement, a claim statement, or it could be an assumption, or even a belief. If you remember the example that I've given to you just now, like the 98% or 95% confidence interval, there was one example, like a belief that, okay, 55% supported Mr. ABC. So that's a belief. So it could be based on the belief or any kind of assumption. It could be a pure fact statement, but it's all a claim. Yeah, a claim, population parameters. But once you do the hypothesis testing on it, then you have a bit of truth in it. That means you already identify a certain percentage of agreement to that claim, or maybe it could be a disagreement. Okay, so here we need experimental or sample evidence to verify the statement. So experimental, don't go and think that you have to do an experiment. No, we basically use what are the samples that has been collected and use all the information, process it into more meaningful information, like converting the information to what we've learned in chapter 2, descriptive statistics, like the mean, standard deviation, and all that, which you can use here now, and use it into the hypothesis testing formula. Yeah. So here, hypothesis test or significant test is such that a process by which this is where we can make a decision uh, based on the two hypotheses that we state. Because remember, class, when we do hypothesis testing, there are actually two hypotheses that we have to state. We have to write the two hypotheses, and based on the test statistics that we're going to do, whether we're going to accept or do not, no, sorry, whether we're going to reject or do not reject the hypothesis. Yeah. So here, the two opposing hypotheses, remember they are opposed of each other, are formulated so that each of the hypotheses is negation of the other. They are totally opposite. So these are the two hypotheses. The first one is the null hypothesis, which we call it as H0. And the second one is the alternative hypothesis, H1. So like what I mentioned just now, the two hypotheses, they must be opposite of each other. Yeah. So if, let's say, we make a statement or a claim about a population, it is assumed to be true. That means the null hypothesis is the true one, unless we are able to declare that it is false. Then we take the alternative hypothesis. I repeat, the null hypothesis, the H0, is the claim to be a true hypothesis until you are able to declare it as false. Then we take the alternative hypothesis as our true one. Yeah. So null hypothesis here, it will specify the value of the population parameter to be tested. That means when we start doing the hypothesis testing, we always believe that the null hypothesis is the true one. Yeah. And the null hypothesis is named such as null hypothesis because it's the starting point of the investigation. And you will see later on that we will use the word or the phrase, there is no difference. You'll see that in our conclusion later on. It is often used in the final interpretation. Okay. The alternative hypothesis, on the other hand, it's also a statement or a claim about the population parameter, but it will only be true if the null hypothesis is false. So that's what I meant just now, class. Remember, I said the null hypothesis is the true one. It's assumed to be the true one until we can prove it is otherwise. If we can prove it is not true, then we take the alternative hypothesis. Yeah. So the rejection of the null hypothesis, H0, remember H0 is the null hypothesis, will imply the likely truth of the alternative hypothesis. If the null hypothesis is rejected, then we take the alternative hypothesis. Is that clear?
Let me see. Is there any like H2?
I didn't get that. No.
Because there is H0, H1. Is there H2?
Is there a what?
Hypothesis, second hypothesis.
Tiada. Only H0 and H1 only. There's no H2, only H0 and H1. We use H0 because that's the starting point. Remember, when you start your distance from point A to point B, we assume the distance is 0. So that's why our null hypothesis start with H0. Then we'll go, if the null hypothesis is rejected, then we take H1. There's only 2. Do not worry, it will not go to H2 and H3 and so forth. Only 2 hypotheses. Yeah. In fact, later on, when you do apply this hypothesis testing into your studies, into your research, or if you decide to do your PhD, depending on what kind of courses you're doing, then it's always 2 hypotheses, H0 and H1. Yeah. Yeah, for now, I would say, can I just give you guys a short break, like 5 minutes, just for you to digest this for a while before I go on to the next area? Okay, can we have a 5 minutes break again?
Okay.
Yeah, 5 more minutes, yeah?
Throughout the story and the introduction to San Andreas, there's a few instances in which Big Smoke will actually defend crack distribution. Now, the main difference between Grove Street and the Ballas in ideology is that Grove Street is completely against drugs. Grove Street believes that drugs will destroy the neighborhood. Sweet has no toleration for crack selling whatsoever. On the other hand, Big Smoke is completely open to that idea and says that it will make them a lot of money. Now, this is extremely suspicious, considering the fact that all of Grove Street's enemies, the Vagos, the Ballas, they are openly distributing crack, And then Sweet, the leader of it, says no crack whatsoever, but the second in command constantly questioning him, and plus all the other suspicious things that have gone on through the story. Somebody, if you look at everything, put it all together, even before the betrayal, you look at all that very carefully, you can see he's going to betray Sweet in order to be able to start selling crack, in order to create this crack empire. Just take a look at this dialogue right here, in which he argues with Sweet about selling crack.
Ever made a gang type?
I don't know, man.
What's up, y'all?
What's up, CJ? What's crack? Man, all they care about is smoking and money.
You can't knock a homie's hustle, sweet.
Them marks ain't soldiers. They idiots trying to be businessmen.
Yeah, but they down with us, man.
All they down with is money. CJ, go down there and show these fools you mean business. These chumps from the ballers are sweating the homies. Go put pressure on them. Let's do it.
We've been putting time in the hood, but we gotta get the homies back together. Like the old days.
Yeah, you right. So you and Ryder gonna handle your business. Man, they're slang to their own mama. They don't care about nothing.
You're naive, my friend. We gotta keep our focus.
The reason this is the biggest sign of betrayal, in my opinion, is because think about it this way. Big Smoke has taken the exact same position as his enemies, the Ballas, and constantly questioning Sweet's leadership. When somebody in your group is taking the exact same position as the enemy, that's pretty much saying that betrayal is right around the corner. And on top of that, there's this extra cutscene in the introduction in which Big Smoke is talking to Ryder and tells him that we got no choice. When he says we got no choice, he's talking about Tenpenny forcing him into this crack empire, but at the same time is he's laughing about it and telling Ryder that we'll make a lot of money, which shows that he doesn't care at all about Sweet. He doesn't care at all about Grove Street. And then there's this scene of Tenpenny walking with Pulaski in which he says that fat guy would see it our way. He's talking about Big Smoke.
I knew that fat fuck would see it our way.
Yeah, always do once they understand the choices we're offering. Say, Frank, what the hell are we gonna do about this Hernandez coming on board with us?
Additionally, there's a dialogue where CJ will tell Big Smoke what's going on here. Is all the problems because of drugs? And Big Smoke will actually refuse to comment on it. And this is in the mission, the wrong side of the tracks.
Was it always like this?
Was what always like this?
Always fucked up around here? Or is it because of the drugs?
What you think, man?
I don't know. That's why I'm asking you.
Yo, hey, don't ask a wise man, Frank. Ask a fool.
That's what I was doing.
Well, if you're gonna make this thing personal, I ain't speaking on it no more.
So that is that for this video. I had a lot of fun making this video. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. I wanted to explain the top 5 hints that Big Smoke was going to betray CJ. The reason I wanted to make this video is because there's a lot of hints in the storyline.
Okay. Is it 5 minutes already? Well, anyway, I hope everyone is here. Let's do the next part. Um, yeah, when we do hypothesis testing, there are errors that we will encounter because, first of all, it still depends on how many percent the value of alpha allocated to us. Alpha is still here, class. I mean, based on the confidence interval, we did use the alpha, right? The alpha is a very important factor because it indicates to us what is the level of confidence interval that we're testing on the data. But the alpha is, in this sense, is um, well, it's important because, as I've mentioned before, the alpha is an indicator of how big or how small the error is, the standard error that it covers. Because, like what I've mentioned in the past, is that in the real situation, nothing is 100% confidence interval. It's impossible that you get a perfect world. Yeah, definitely there is a tendency for an error. So because of that, when we do hypothesis testing, it's the same case. We have errors. There are two main errors basically. So two types of errors. The first one is we accept a true hypothesis, which is a correct decision because it is a true hypothesis. We do not know it is actually a true one, but we assume it's a true hypothesis. So when we accept it, that means we did not reject it. It is a correct decision. Same thing with a false hypothesis. Because it is false, we reject it. Therefore, it's a correct decision as well. So when you encounter these two things, it's okay because you did the right thing. It's a true hypothesis, which you accept. It's a false hypothesis, you reject. It's a correct decision. Therefore, there are cases though that maybe it's because of the value of your alpha, maybe because there is extreme values in the data. It will give us in the final decision, it is actually a true hypothesis, but we reject it. So when this happens, it is an incorrect decision. Think about it, class. It's basically a true decision. It's a true hypothesis, but you reject it. So this is an incorrect decision, of which it is known as a type 1 error. So this is the first type of the two types of errors mentioned here. So you reject a true hypothesis. And this, of course, we label as alpha, whereby it's equal to the probability of the null hypothesis being rejected, given that it is true. So this is the first error. The second one is when we accept a false hypothesis. It is also known as an incorrect decision, and it is a type 2 error, which we label it as a beta. Yeah, that means it's the probability of do not rejecting the null hypothesis given that it is false. So two types of errors that may happen. Do take note though, when we do not reject the null hypothesis, it does not mean that the null hypothesis is always true. Now, this is the case when you do not reject it. Yeah. So don't think that it's always true. The hypothesis is true. It could be because there is not enough evidence to reject the null hypothesis. And again, here it depends on what is the value of our alpha. It could be at the alpha value at 0.05, we did not reject the null hypothesis. But when the alpha value is 0.08, we reject it based on the statistic calculation that you do. So It's not always the case. Yeah, that's why when we write the conclusion, as you see in the example later, or maybe next week, you'll see that we always make it a point to write at alpha equal to 0.05 or at alpha equals to 0.01. We do not reject the null hypothesis. You will always see that kind of sentence. Yeah. Again, I want to come back to these errors. Yeah. um, don't worry about so much about remembering all these type 1 errors or type 2 errors, correct decision or not correct decision. This is just to highlight to every person who is studying about hypothesis that errors exist. These are the four types of results that we could expect from a hypothesis testing. Okay, so far okay? Any question?
So far, no.
Okay. So moving on, this is the significant level denoted by alpha. So I've been mentioning about alpha all this while. Alpha is a very important determinant in hypothesis testing. Um, the, the question would refer to it as significant level. So this significant level, which is our alpha, is also an indicator that if you read this significant level, the word significant level in the question, you know that you have to solve the question using hypothesis testing method. So that's the clue. Like the chapter that we did just now, earlier, chapter 5, the word confidence interval is an important indicator that you have to solve the question using confidence interval method. But for hypothesis testing, the word significant level is the one that you should check out from the question. So the significant level, like I said, is the maximum probability of making type 1 error in hypothesis testing. So it depends on your alpha, basically. So that's why I said sometimes when the alpha is 5%, you reject the hypothesis. But when you do it for 8%, you do not reject the hypothesis. So it depends on what is the value of the alpha, and therefore your conclusion, you must always write what is the level of significance that you have used. Okay. Yeah, when we do the hypothesis testing, you must specify what is the value of the alpha. It's a must. You must indicate it in your answer. So these are just two examples of what is the value of the alpha. It could be 5% or 1%. But then it depends because it's a mathematical statistical kind of question. It depends on what the question wants you to test on. It could be 2%, it could be 3%, depending. Yeah. So this is just a simple example, not the whole question, just to show you that you see, if we select 5% significant level, you see this is the keyword that you should check out. We will expect that the probability of making an error of rejecting the hypothesis when it is true is 5%. Yeah, I mean, this is like we're checking out the error. What is the type 1 error, basically? So in other words, it is stated as we are about 95% confidence that we will make a correct decision, although we could be wrong with a probability of 5%. Yeah. So normally hypothesis testing is being discussed in the court case. Yeah, because that's always the case. It happens, yeah, like the person, yeah, the defendant normally, because it's very unknown, because of course the defendant, they want to be okay, right? They want to be not considered as guilty. They will not say the truth. They will just say, I'm not guilty. We don't know whether they are guilty or not. So it's the same case like hypothesis testing. It depends on what is your significant level? Yeah. So of course in court it will be on the debates that was carried on, but in terms of uh, hypothesis testing, what we're doing is we are using, you know, statistical information and looking at what is the value of your significant level, whether to prove that your claim or your statement, your belief or your assumption, whether it is true or not, whether it is accepted or not. Yeah.
So
I
this
hope
kind
it
of question, you have to write sentences.
come again.
This kind of question you answer must be sentence.
Yeah, quite quite a lot. Like
Is
it's
it?
not like calculation a lot. It's more on yeah, it's not like an essay. You still have like step by step how to write it. I'll show you the step by step.
Is it
In not
common? Is it common in the exams in the final year exams for this
for
kind of question?
this question.
Yeah.
For degree, yes. For diploma, no. Yeah. For diploma, I mean the diploma students they also do this question. There would be one or two question from this topic for them. For degree, yeah, I would say it would be the same. The same, yeah. You definitely get this in the final exam. One or two question, but basically it will covers one question. You have four questions, right? So one question solving this lah. Yeah. It's not don't think it's like an essay, okay? It's very wordy lah. Just let wordy with a bit of calculation. But once you get the hang of it, adjusted to it, you should be able to do. But it's just that the explanation of it involves a lot of areas. Like now, what you see is about the critical region or rejection region, whereby from a normal distribution, you have to identify which region correspond to the levels of significance where it is valid. And when we consider the critical region or rejection region, you have to identify from the normal curve where is the critical region. And if it's on the critical region, do we reject the hypothesis even though it may be considered as to be false? So when we do that, when we do the critical region, this is where you need to apply either is it a two tail or a one tail. So two tails is, what does it mean by a two tails? Is that the normal curve, normal distribution curve, you would have to divide the alpha by 2. If it's a one tail, you don't have to divide the alpha by 2. And there are conditions as well. When do we use the two tail? When do we use the one tail? So that requires explanation. Yeah, a detailed
Oh,
explanation. Mhm.
so the two tails refer to the bell shape.
Correct. Yeah, we still do normal distribution. Yeah, we still do normal distribution. It refers to the bell shape. So you see here, I don't know whether you have this diagram in your notes. Do you have this in your notes?
Wait,
If you do not, it would be a good idea to have it. But then, to what I know, students normally just print screen or you just take a picture. Yeah. But anyhow, a two-tailed test is that presented by this, yeah, whereby the area inside here is 1 minus alpha, and the alpha divided by 2, the smaller value, is separated into two parts equally because the alpha is divided by 2 for a two-tailed test. For a one-tailed test, you see you have two types for a one-tailed test. One is a left tail where you see the alpha is on the left side, and the other is a right tail where the alpha is on the right side. And based on this normal distribution concerning with the two tail, the area here, you can see here, is what we call as the rejection region. So when we do the test statistics, the calculation later on, if it falls on this location, yeah, any on this area or this area, therefore we reject the null hypothesis. But if it falls on the middle part, where it is under the 1 minus alpha, it is considered as an acceptance region. Yeah, so same goes for the one tail. You have acceptance region here, and rejection is on this side. Now you do see the critical value, sorry, the critical value is the exact value that you will need to identify from the given alpha, and of course other information that is provided. Yeah, so same here, we have a critical value exactly on the line here, and same thing here, we also have the critical value here. So remember, so far that we have covered, we have the hypothesis, the significant level, and the tail. Is it two tail or one tail? If it's one tail, you have left or right. So the next slide you see is the critical value, meaning if your alternative hypothesis, notice here it's the H1, if it indicates any difference from the null hypothesis, then your decision is to take a two-tailed test. Therefore, your critical value, you have to divide the alpha by 2. So you have one value positive, one value negative. Yeah, but if your now alternative hypothesis H1 indicate less than, indicate decrease, indicate lower than, then we do a left tail, and therefore your critical value must be negative Z alpha. But if it's greater than, like when you read the question, it's any indication that it's greater than, more than, and increase, then we use right tail, and the critical value is the positive value. So this is important to remember. Is that clear?
The H1 compared
Sorry?
with H0.
The what?
The H1 compared with the H0.
Correct. Yeah, we need to
Oh,
compare. And that means in the question you have to look for keywords, like if the word, like the word exceed, that means you have to use the right tail. We choose the third one. Yeah. So the next table here is just showing us
Is
what
it
we have done before. Yeah.
is it possible the rejection region is bigger than the acceptance region?
Not possible. It's always the rejection region will be smaller, because the rejection always follow what is the value of your alpha, what is your significance level lah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. But good question, Calvin. Yeah. So this is the notation we have been using all this while about population and sample. So you can see that population, we're using the mean, the mu, the sigma, the pi, and the n for population. And sample, there should be a bar here. A sample, sample mean, the sample, standard deviation, proportion, and the n for the sample. Yeah. So yeah, so far that's it. Now these are the steps to perform a hypothesis testing. We have 6 steps altogether. So this is what you have to do. You have to do all these steps until you reach to making the decision. Yeah. So step 1, you need to state what is your null and alternative hypothesis, which we already covered just now. You need to state what is your significant level, your alpha, and the critical value. Both we have covered just now. Select the distribution test statistics to use. So this one I haven't show you the formula, but there is 2 fixed formulas that we're going to use. Either it's a mean or proportion. So it's only 2 cases. Basically, hypothesis testing, you have more than just two cases that we cover here. You have t-test, ANOVA, a lot of other testing to use, but for our syllabus we only do two. Yeah. And after you have done the testing, then we need to decide what is the rejection region and non-rejection region. And then you need to calculate what is the value of the test statistics, and finally make a decision. What is your decision, your final decision, to reject or not to reject the null hypothesis? Yeah. And basically the test statistics from step 5 is to be used or to check whether we do accept or do we reject the null hypothesis. Yeah. Now, when we do the example later on, you'll see that it's much more, how do you say, easier to see what all these steps involve. So we have to wait until next week. I don't want to start to explain how to do this now. It's best we do it next week lah. Is it okay?
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So we stop here until I see you guys next week concerning with lectures. Okay. So let me just stop the recording because I want to talk about the your test for tomorrow. Will you guys be able to be online by 12:45 tomorrow?
Oh, after the lecture,
What time is your lecture finish tomorrow?
11:30.
Oh, 11:30. Then I would prefer you guys to start. I mean, I want to give you extra time. What time is your lecture after my class normally on Tuesday?
Oh, after this class is 2:30.
The next class is 2:30.
Yeah.
Ah,
So,
serious ba?
okay.
The next class is 2:30.
What? Tomorrow? Today?
Yeah, tomorrow is the test kan?
Tomorrow
Yes.
there's no more class after 11:30.
Or no more? Ah,
There's
uh,
only a tutorial class.
so after 2:30, is there another class?
No, no.
Oh, then tomorrow I'm going to give you 2 hours for the test. I think I already checked out the question and I said
Wait,
it's
wait, wait.
sufficient.
I think
Hmm?
no, there's CMI. I think CMI in 3.
What's MI?
The
The
MPU,
subject? Huh?
MPU subject.
Ah, okay. So then what time does it start?
3.
It's 3 to 4.
3 to 4. Okay.
So
Can
the
you all be here by 12:30 tomorrow? 12:30
Okay.
tomorrow to start the test.
Okay.
So that you have
But-
extra time lah, because I just want to make sure that you all
Oh yeah.
time. Yeah, because you need to submit by paling lambat I can give you is 2:45 or 3 p.m. lah. 2:45, I think 2:45. Hang on. Yeah, 2:40. 12:45
I
to
get it.
2:45. Ngam kan 2 hours?
Oh yeah. So after 2:30 is the submission. If
Yes, not after 2:30, before 2:30.
before.
Can.
Oh.
But maybe
Oh.
I give extra time for compiling, like maybe you want to scan your work kan, maybe that takes time, so I'll give extra time lah. All right. So tomorrow, 12, what did I say? 12:45, we all must be here for the test. Can?
Okay.
Yeah. So Noel said, okay, Calvin.
Okay.
Calvin. Okay, and Farah. Okay, kan Farah? Let me check the chat. Okay, so I'll see you guys tomorrow for the test. No tutorial today. Why? Because I want you guys to be ready for the test tomorrow. So
No,
thank
no tutorial tomorrow.
Yalah, test time kan?
Okay.
All right. So
Wait,
I'll
how-
see you guys.
1
Huh?
or 2 hour? 2 hour.
Come again?
2 hour.
Two, one. What did you say, Calvin?
Is the test 2 hour?
Yeah, I'm planning to give you 2 hours. Is that okay? Yeah. So I'll see you guys tomorrow. Good luck. Please study. Did I
Okay.
tell you what chapters to cover?
Oh yeah. 1 to 4, right?
Yes,
1,
please.
2, 3, 4.
Yes. So do prepare and see you guys tomorrow at 12:45. If I'm not in yet, please give me a call, Noel. Sometimes I forget. But I'll make sure.
Okay.
Okay, bye-bye. Thank
Okay,
you,
thank you, miss.
everyone. Bye.